there. I thought she got the ball.
Yes, everybody, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur and welcome back Tottenham Hotspur. We are one match away from our Europa League final on Wednesday. It's another game where we get to see the boys in action. It's another game where we get to, I guess, see what, sort of players can develop some type of match sharpness, some type of confidence ahead of our more important game next week. We have a trio here, potentially have some others fill in at some stage. Dave is off celebrating a communion with some family members, but he will be there, so I'm told, for the watch along. So don't panic or anything like that. But good to have some people already in here with us. Good to have Drew and Soren. And we're going to try our best to cover this game, even though I think we all have our minds absolutely on next week. And I think we're all preparing our minds and our anxiety for next week as well. But we do have some good questions that Dave and I have cooked up for today. So hopefully you guys can join us and have us on in the background while you're getting ready for a Friday night match day. Not too many Friday night match days that we've had this season. I'll go to you first there, Dermatron. I mean, how you feeling, back from Crystal Palace and also, like I said, only so many days away from the big one.
Yeah, I just want this game out of the way now. Get on to Wednesday. Let's get to the final. I do know what, Jack. I don't know about you, but that Palace game was a real eye-opener for me of what a difficult job Ange has between now and the final. And what he has to pick for tonight. And who does he pick? Who doesn't he pick? Because if you looked, Kulu got injured. He's now out of the final. You don't risk anyone else. And I think that was an eye-opener for me, the difficult decisions he has to make tonight. So, look, I always love watching Tottenham play. You know that. Same as you, same as Soren. We're Tottenham through and through. We're white and blue through our veins. So, yeah, it's another game. Come on, we're going to win tonight. 5-0 coming. It's not going to happen. But I thought I'd just come out with it anyway and just say, come on, the Spurs. We're marching all the way to Bilbao to win that trophy. Bring it back to the lane. And let's smash. Let's give Villa a big dent tonight. Let's put a dent in their Champions League hopes. Let's dent the ex-Guna.
Be nice to spoil a party of some kind, but it'd also be nice to have our own party next week.
Yeah.
Soren, I mean, today I know it's going to be, a bit of a nothing game, but it's actually probably just it's going to be like an injury prevention watch along. We're just looking to see some guys get some match sharpness today, potentially get some type of confidence ahead of Wednesday, and then hopefully no more Kulusevski-like issues that we had against Crystal Palace, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem, isn't it? It's
a weird vibe.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people whinging about playing the kids and the B team and how we lost on the last match, and then you go lose Kulu, and it kind of justifies the reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
But still, people are happy, and you kind of think if he goes out and plays Van der Ven, Romero, and whoever else is fit tonight, and we lose somebody else, it just never ends. But can't see how he can't play some of them, because as much as it would be nice not to play them, I don't know how much good it will do with having such a long rest. So you kind of think, do we do what we can and play some of the big guys for half an hour or for the first half and then swap them round? But that means, somebody's going to play. So I don't know the answer. I mean, I would rather see a team of the kids play tonight and don't care as long as they're putting some sort of performance. And a draw would do me tonight. I don't want another loss, because as much as we say play the kids, we don't want to see us going into the final with sort of losing mentality, which I know some fans will say we've already got, but don't think there's a right or wrong answer tonight. I think if we play everybody and somebody gets injured, the manager and the team are going to get slaughtered. If we play the kids and we get beat, the manager's going to get slaughtered. So I think he does what he's got to do for his own personal gains in this one and just go. But look, the argument should be that if we play the sort of B squad, it should still be good enough to put in a performance.
Well,
it's all right losing if the performance is there. It's when there's no performance and we go out with a whimper. I think that's what pisses most fans off. So I think tonight is one of those games I don't think there's going to be many Spurs fans that excited about tonight. I think it's all about next Wednesday.
I'm excited about tonight.
We know you are, Dermatron. You're excited for any, bit of glimpse of the boys and Lily Whites. But
Yeah.
to your point, Soren, like about the B team, I didn't know what expectations I really had for the Crystal Palace game. I think I was just looking to have some type of, fun atmosphere. To a degree, it kind of was before the game. But then within 5 minutes, you kind of had this vibe that it felt like we were going to get absolutely pounded by Crystal Palace. And I think the frustrating bit for me was watching that game was it was kind of those B team players I felt like actually really let us down. Like they're the ones who didn't necessarily play at all on Thursday night against Bodo Glimt in either of the legs. And it felt like they weren't really in any sort of type of confidence, but also really didn't seem to care all that much themselves, despite the fact that they weren't necessarily tired. They're not, hungover from the Thursday night wins or anything like that. And I was actually very disappointed in the Ben Davies of the world, the Jet Spences of the world, the Archie Grays and whatnot, that I just felt like, really actually have not necessarily done their job to give these guys that are necessarily, I guess, in the first team for the more important games. They're not really giving them, that a bit of rest, or that bit of confidence. They seem to almost be letting themselves down as well as the team down. But we'll see if they can turn that around tonight, or if they do go with the kids, like you're saying, maybe we could just get, something a whole lot different instead of just going with the default B team players. I'm just going to get to some of the people in the house here. I think we have Paul joining us in a little bit. I think when he's ready, and then maybe some others will join at some point as well. And then we will be doing the watch along afterwards. Please, everybody, do smash the like button, get into the comments, please. And we do have some good questions lined up for tonight, despite it again being a weird game and a weird vibe. But it is Friday night, and Tottenham Hotspur are playing. Shawnee Maddox is in the house. What's up, boys? Good to see you, Shawnee. Saying, I hope we play the kiddos. Well, Drew already brought it up nice and early, and I'm sure we get on to that, Shawnee, and definitely make you happy. Big John, the fisherman, good to see you, my friend. The Shem Tan, hopefully get a good kebab order in tonight if we do get a good result, or even just to cover our tears from whatever result ends up happening. Shemi, Sean Daniel, good to see you from Barbados. Guys, Europa and Super Cup incoming. The Super Cup is just a nice reminder of the fact that you did get to win the Europa League. I think even though it's not necessarily always, an important game, it's usually just like a good preseason game to sort of see what you're made of. Derek Hutchinson, good to see you in the house. We also have Kurt Smith in the house. Good to see you, my friend. Razzle Dazzle, great name. Tyler saying I'm captaining Ollie Watkins in the FPL today, ready for the destruction. Fazzy Radfar, in reality, will be battered by Villa, hence manage expectations. I think that's why it's just kind of a strange vibe today, Faz. I think, if anything, we might have been expecting more of some type of result against Crystal Palace, whereas for this Aston Villa game, this means a lot to them. They're battling for Champions League. It's neck and neck with themselves, Forest, Chelsea. I think Man City are pretty much well and clear now, but I think there's another team I might be missing that's all battling for those top positions, and they're going to be absolutely up for this. And in a way, playing Spurs is kind of ideal for them because we, of course, have our minds elsewhere. That's why I kind of felt like maybe the Crystal Palace game, again, maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Maybe I was asking a bit too much, but Crystal Palace had an FA Cup game that they were more worried about, and yet they still, put on their best side, their best 11, and put in a pretty decent performance. They could have won by 4 or 5 goals against us. Whereas this Villa game, I am expecting them, to probably get, over the line against us. But good to see you in the house, and also really do appreciate all the love and support that you do show Dave and I. Shawnee saying, honestly, I prefer the kids. They put in a full shift. I think we might get something different if we put in the kids. Like I said, a lot of those B team players against Crystal Palace really did not impress me at all, Shawnee. Mark News saying, big up Durham, Jack, and the panel. I take an away draw and no injuries tonight, and 1 or 2 of the kids playing their way into the European squad. Wonder if that's, towards the end, they're a bit too much to ask there, Mark New. Like, can, these kids really, solidify themselves into Postecoglou's plans for Wednesday night? I wonder if, in a way, he already kind of has a good idea of who he is going to be playing Wednesday. I think he might even be training more for that game than he probably even was for this one. But you never know. You never know. Maybe we might get a little Mikey Moore masterclass in Bilbao. Joseph, good to see you in the house. Really do appreciate all the support you show us. Kaylee Davis is in here as well. I am back from the UK, but I am doing it from a different place, doing a bit of house sitting and dog sitting at the minute. And then we also have Marquez in here. Good to see you, Marquez. And the Dermatron, thank you very much. Dermatron has gifted out a membership to Sort Bill. Great name, and please take advantage. Monday, I imagine that will be the day of the fan show ahead of our big day on Wednesday. So please join us, Sort Bill, and take advantage of Dermotron's generosity. But let's get stuck into this one, boys. Like I said before, everybody, get into the comments. Let me know what you think about this game, what your expectations are, what you would like to see, I guess, in terms of a lineup or any sort of things like that. But Tottenham fans, Soren, are reportedly traveling in mass to Bilbao. Some 15,000 ticketless supporters are going. What does this say about the passion of Spurs fans this season? Are you already maybe in a celebratory mood for this final, even before facing Villa? Like we've kind of said already a few times now, it's just everyone's mind is absolutely on Wednesday. And it's almost like this game is a bit of an inconvenience, it feels like, beforehand.
Yeah, I think that is the case, isn't it? I mean, look, years gone past, it's been total opposite. We've concentrated on the league. We've not been bothered about a lot of the cups. We've fielded weakened teams, and everybody's been up in arms. Now we're doing it the other way. People are up in arms because the league suddenly matters. But I think when you get to when you're actually in the final of a European Cup, you've got to make that your whole priority. And as much as it's not my way of thinking normally, tonight it's a match I don't want. I'd rather just go straight into the final now and see what happens. Because you kind of think tonight, like we said earlier, it's kind of a no-win situation. Unless we go out there and batter Villa, you just know there's going to be negative thoughts afterwards leading into the final, and we don't need that. We just need to get into the final. I just hope tonight kind of either a draw or we win, and just move on. A good performance. I don't think any of the kids are going to play them way into the team, but they might play the way into his mind for substitutions. That's the thing, if there's any injuries or things like that, Mikey Moore, if he's playing a good little performance, might get some minutes. I think Sonny will start tonight. If he puts in a shift, then it'd be interesting to see what Ange does with him. But yeah, let's just get to. I just want tonight over with, and straight into Wednesday night. Wednesday night, is all that's on my mind. And look, absolutely brilliant for the fans travelling out there. It shows that this is something special. 15,000 going to head out there. I just hope the team do it for the fans. I really do. I just hope that come Wednesday night, 10 o'clock, whatever time, everybody's cheering, everybody's joyful, everybody's in a good mood because we've lifted that cup.
Yeah. I like Wemberley's comment. I like Wemberley's comment, Soren. Not sure what tonight's going to be like. It's either going to be scary or funny in a dark way.
Yeah.
It might be the levity type of humor tonight. And I think almost everyone's minds are really just on no more injuries and really just hoping that maybe some sort of players that maybe haven't been given a ton of minutes, recently, let's say like a Pop Matasar or someone like that who has a chance of featuring in the final. Maybe he can get some match sharpness, get some confidence in. But it is a strange game. It's a strange scenario. It's also that way sometimes when you are at the end of a Premier League season. Like you just maybe already know that you're out of all the cup competitions, or if you are still in one, your mind is absolutely focused on that one. And the Premier League almost becomes a bit of an inconvenience. In our case, too, where we are in the league, it absolutely is an inconvenience, this domestic league. So it's just a strange place to be in. I imagine the levity humor will come out tonight. And then El Dante's in here as well. Good to see you, my friend. And then also the likes of John Stokes. But, I think it is a, sign, though, that the Spurs fans, despite this season, Soren and Dermot, the fact that they are traveling to Bilbao and the numbers of around 15,000 does show that, they are in a celebratory mood and they are still displaying that passion, despite this being a absolute roller coaster of a season. But Villa are desperate, Dermotron, for Champions League football, and they will treat this practically like a final. Do you think Spurs will show that same level of urgency, or will we just see another mentally checked out performance like you and I saw against Crystal Palace last weekend?
I would love to think they would turn up and tonight and give a good account of themselves. Look, Villa are a good side, and they have been all season. They're going for a Champions League place, so they're going to be up for it tonight. Look, as everyone comes through it okay with no injuries, I think I'll take that. I would love for us to turn up there and do them tonight. I really would, after what we saw at Palace. But what we saw at Palace, Jack, was really worrying that the players have already checked out of this Premier League season. So I'm not expecting much tonight. I expect us to turn up and do our job, but just go through the motions. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know about tonight. Villa have been a good run. They've had a good season, and they need points for the Champions League. And they're not an easy team to beat at Villa Park, by the way. Emery will have them pumped for this. Ange will have to get the players pumped up. There's players that can play their way into the final. So I would expect somebody tonight to spring a surprise and say, right, I'm going to put a performance in. And maybe play their way into the starting 11. There is spaces there. So I think tonight we'll have to see what Tottenham turns up. If it's going to be Dr. Jekyll or Dr. Hyde, one or the other. But I'm not. I mean, I saw it was worrying, wasn't it, Jack, with Palace as well? The way the team's mental attitude was, wasn't it? I think that was the biggest problem for me.
Yeah,
they looked like mentally they weren't there. They're just already thinking on Wednesday, and you can't do that in the Premier League.
I mean,
sorry, go.
No. I'm just gonna say, like, maybe because I know Soren only has so much longer, on this, but Soren, I mean, to that point that Dermotron is making, like, I was disappointed by Spurs being so checked out. And again, in particular with those B team players, the guys that hadn't played on Thursday night, whereas Palace, they have their FA Cup final. And I believe their game is actually, further away than even ours. And they put in their best team, they put in, their best sort of performance. It just felt like Palace had similar reasons to also just be checked out. Like they didn't necessarily need to, go all in, but they absolutely walloped us and they looked really up for that game. Whereas Spurs were like the complete opposite end of the spectrum there. So is that kind of frustration valid? Obviously, I'm not raving and ranting about it, but, is it a valid thing to bring up there that Palace seemed far more up for it? And they also have a cup final to be prioritizing and focusing on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange one. You look at some of the ones that were playing, and you did expect a lot more from them. I mean, Spencer's just dropped off a cliff, but kind of get it. If these players are sort of thinking, well, don't matter what my performance is, I ain't getting into that squad, then you kind of do wonder what they've got to play for. But on the other hand, you've got to think, well, you're a professional footballer getting paid a lot of money. Shouldn't matter. You should be going out there and showing us what you can do. You should be showing the manager and the fans that if you don't play on Wednesday night, then you've done everything that you can to deserve it. And I think the problem for a lot of us was you went into that match watching and thinking, do you know what? It almost doesn't matter. And the players have probably got exactly the same mindset, which is, if we've got that mindset, you can't blame them. But they also, being professionals, shouldn't get into that mindset. And yeah, it was disappointing because, you expected a little bit more fight. And you look at it and think, well, if that's how they do go into next Wednesday's match, we are knackered because, we can't go in there thinking it's a dead rubber. These players, I mean, look, if there's a couple of injuries tonight, some of those players could be playing on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So, to me, they should still be going out there and giving absolutely everything, no matter what, to show us that, look, if something goes wrong, I'm here. You can rely on me. I'm ready to play for you. And unfortunately, some of them just didn't.
Yeah, I mean, El Dante, I totally hear your point, that they only traveled back from Norway. It was a difficult journey up there. But that's why I keep harping on, like, the guys that didn't play on Thursday night, all they had to do was just travel with the team. But it's not like they were the ones who actually went out on the pitch and had to finish the job. Like I said, I thought Archie Gray was awful. I thought the likes of Ben Davis and Danza were terrible out from the back. Jed Spence looked like he was just mentally checked out. And a few others too, like even Wilson Odebear, as much as I praised the guy in the past, he was kind of just nothing. He did his best Brennan Johnson impersonation pretty much for that game against Crystal Palace. So might be thinking I'm a bit harsh. I could be a bit harsh, but the guys that I was more disappointed in were the ones that didn't necessarily play at all Thursday night. So I don't know why they would have been as checked out as at least they looked to me in person for that game. But it's a fair point that you make that, Palace did have, of course, more time off, more preparation for that game than we did. So the preparation point is totally, totally valid. Good to see Iceman in here. Appreciate your support, Iceman. Good to see you in the house, my friend. But let's get on to maybe one more question. I think I do have to let Soren go, and then hopefully some others can fill in. Do you worry, though, that off the back, that if we do go into the final, though, maybe Soren, off the back of a limp performance, that it could affect the momentum and belief heading into Wednesday night? I'm not so sure, really. Like, we've seen bad performances before, and then we ended up turning it up against Bodo and Frankfurt. But before a final, is it important to at least not put in a limp performance? You kind of made a point there about some of those guys who potentially could play Wednesday night. They might not even know that they're playing yet.
This is it. You kind of think, going into that final, they say winning breeds confidence. So the best thing would be to go in with a win. But you kind of, I don't know, the way Spurs season goes, if we win tonight, we're probably odds-on favourites to lose on Wednesday. Whereas if we lose tonight, we're probably more favourites to win on Wednesday. It's just a crazy season supporting Tottenham Hotspur. If it was a case of the guaranteed me, if we lose tonight, we win on Wednesday, I'd take that all day long, obviously. If it's a case of, well, if you draw, it's a 50-50 chance. What do? I'd rather see a draw maybe and go in with a little bit of confidence. But you also then say to it, well, if it's not going to be the same 11 players playing tonight as it is on Wednesday, then maybe those 11 that play on Wednesday have more confidence no matter what happens tonight. So I don't know the answer. Is the simple question, is the simple answer to the question, should I say. I think it would be good for us to go in there and win tonight, or at least put in a good performance. That's the main thing. I think that if we go in with a good performance, and look, if it's a draw, if it's a win, I don't want to really see a loss, but if it's a 1-0 loss, but we've played absolutely fantastic, you kind of look at it and think,
you take it.
Take it, as long as there's no injuries. I think the only thing that we have to come out with tonight is no injuries to any of the players that might play. And you go from there. But I am going to have to jump. And
all good, man.
I just think Wednesday night, it's written in the stars. We're going to Bilbao and we're bringing that cup home. That cabinet has been empty for far too long, and it's just a very typical Spursy thing to have such a shit season and come out with a European Cup.
Well, hopefully the trophy cabinet is filled and the whiskey cabinet goes empty after our win on Wednesday night.
I bloody hope so. Yeah, I bloody hope so. But I'm going to be positive for my last words. We're going to do 2-1 tonight, no injuries, and then we're going to win United 3-1 on Wednesday.
That'd be great. Thanks, Soren. Appreciate you, sir. Come on, you Spurs. It'd be nice to spoil some Villa parties tonight. That'd be for sure. And then, unfortunately for Soren, there are no good Spanish whiskeys, so he's going to have to stick to probably the English or the Scottish or the Irish stuff. Or there's some good stuff over here in the Yankland. But I think we'll actually. You're welcome to pop off, Soren. I think we're going to bring in Paul. I think he said he's all good to go here. He's just been kind of finishing up some work in the background. Paul, are you there? I think you might be on mute there. Hey, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, mate. You?
Just trying to build up to a strange game and in a way like I brought up before, right? Like a bit of an inconvenience of a game. And Spurs fans and as well as the club, have complained, that this game is even going on, right before our match on Wednesday night. So we'll see how we handle it. But I mean, to the question I was asking earlier, Dermatron, about, do you want to see a good performance, before Wednesday night? The funny thing is that we've seen so many terrible ones right before we've gone into these big Europa League knockout games. And it didn't really matter very much, actually. We ended up, playing some of our best football despite coming off of the back of a terrible performance in the Premier League. So I don't even know what to make of, that question. You could lean both ways. You could say, yes, of course, winning against Villa wouldn't do you any harm. But then at the same time, we've seen they put in stinkers in the Premier League before, only to then show up and play brilliantly in the Europa League. So it's hard.
It is hard because we have played terribly this season and gone on to Europa League and played absolutely fantastic. And you're sitting there scratching your head, you're thinking, where the hell has this come from? I want to see tonight's a bit of pride, a little pride in the shirt. We saw none of that on Sunday. I even put in there, you named a list of players. I thought Bentancur was woeful on Sunday as well. He went missing.
Yeah, but
And
he's an excuse I would give who did play Thursday night. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
whereas
but
like the guys that I'm harping on about are the guys that didn't play Thursday night.
I get what you're saying, but he's in there as one of the leaders. He should be going around rollicking these players that didn't play on Thursday night and say, come on, you didn't play. Come on, get your ass into gear. It's I don't, you could lean either way, Jack, on that. I just want to see a bit of pride. That's all I want to see tonight. It's a bit of pride and a little bit of what it means to wear the shirt. Yeah. And if we can see that tonight, then I'd be happy going into Wednesday, knowing, right, these players get it. They get it what it means to wear a Tottenham shirt. They get it what it means to wear that cockerel. And they owe us that. They owe the away fans something tonight, because them fans have travelled up and down the country all season watching Dross, watching us get spanked left, right and centre. And them away fans tonight deserve something. They deserve them players to go out and say, this is for you guys. And I think that's what I want to see tonight. I want them players to go out and say to the away fans, this is for you. And then go and win the trophy on Wednesday, which I think we will. And just to add to that, you said 15,000 Spurs fans going out there. Only 2,000 Man United ticklers fans are heading out to Bilbao.
Wow.
So who's the more confident out of the two sets of fans? I think we are.
And Spurs are massive, clearly. Tottenham are massive.
Only 2,000 are going out there. So tonight's important. Go out there, put a performance in. Even if we lose, go down fighting.
Yeah, Paul's going to be a busy man then, as the travel agent, if that many people are going out to Spain. Rob Ragnarsson, good to see you in the house, saying we need to play all the youths today, plus Son. Everyone's saying play the youngsters.
Yeah.
Marquez saying, Jack, I think that the important thing today is just to show some attitude. This can lead to a surprise. I think that attitude has been missing in loads of games this season. Paul, what have you made that question from earlier? Like, just don't want to see another limp performance like we did against Palace, or are your expectations kind of just don't really care for this game? How do you feel ahead of this one? It's a strange one.
For me, I'm not really that bothered. They haven't shown it all season. These are supposed to be our fringe players. And if they are fringe players, surely they should be playing at the top of their game every game to break into that main squad, to get into these big games. I just saw a performance on Sunday that was just, nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted to get up for it. Nobody was like, well, hang on a minute. We've got a European final round the corner. I've got 2 games to show my worth. Let's go out there and do it. And they did absolutely nothing. But I've said it for years. Our so-called players that are not in our first 11 have always had this attitude. This is not a new thing at Tottenham. This has been going on for years. Look at that team we put out against Fulham in the Carabao Cup. They should have beaten them, but they didn't, because they just couldn't be bothered. Oh, we're playing the Carabao Cup. Not like this. They're not seeing it as opportunities to get into the main starting 11. But we've done it for years. This is no difference. This is why when I hear people talking about transfers, oh, he doesn't get into our first 11, but, it's another thing. We should be getting players that go straight into our starting 11. So our current 11 become our backup players, which then we start fighting in to get into the first 11. That's how you improve the squad. You don't improve the squad by buying somebody who's up and coming and then, we've got to wait 3 years, because then the ones in the first team get too comfortable and we end up back in that horrible cycle.
Yeah. Marquez seems to agree with you. K32, good to see you in the house as well, my friend. He's saying play the youngsters tonight, and they said I said for months that Spurs are going to win this UEFA Cup and was laughed at. Our name is on that cup. People feel like it's already etched in. Good to see you in the house, K32, as well as plenty of the other members of the channel. Sean Maddox saying it's about showing some effort. Shouldn't be that complicated. I think the expectations for a lot of these Premier League games, I actually think have been quite low. And then what's been frustrating is they've somehow, and for whatever reason, have still gone underneath those expectations. Like, they haven't been able to surpass them, despite some of our expectations for these games literally being at the bottom basement sort of levels. But they still find a way, Shawnee. They still find a way. Darius, good to see you in the house as well. Spence to assist, Tell to score, win tonight while everybody get the bets on. And then El Tel Cockerell joining us. Thank you for being a member for so long, my friend. 17 months. Vamos a ganar. We are going to win the European Cup 2-0. Come on, you effing Spurs. Big up to you, my friend. But yeah, doing my best sort of Spanish translation there. And I think I got it absolutely spot on. Big up to you, El Tel Cockerell. Man, I think we're all just looking at this game as just an opportunity to watch Spurs on a Friday night and then, prepare ourselves mentally for the bigger, more important game on Wednesday, or miércoles, as you would say in Espanol. Problem with my languages is that, knowing a bit of German and Spanish, I find it so hard not to confuse the two sometimes, despite how different they are as languages. Lee Moody's in here. Good to see you as well. But let's get through some of the other questions that we do have for tonight. Postecoglou, to you, Paul, has to strike a balance between rhythm and rest. Which starters absolutely do you feel like need minutes against Villa tonight, and which players do you feel like should be wrapped in cotton wool and should be nowhere near the pitch with Bilbao so close?
Our back five should be nowhere near that pitch tonight, in all honesty. Our complete back five, they shouldn't even be risked, not even for a minute. Do not put them anywhere near that pitch.
Leave them in London.
Yeah, leave them there. You're not playing tonight. You're going to wrap you in cotton wool, have a rest. Do not put them anywhere near that pitch. Because if those Villa players get anywhere near them players, we know what they're going to do. They've done it before. So the only one I really think that actually should be playing tonight would be Sonny. But I don't want to see him start. I'd rather see him come on towards the end, so he doesn't get that stop-start sort of thing. I'd rather he does the second half and not the first half.
Do you think there's a chance that if he just makes a host of changes, let's say he plays a ton of the youths, goes with just a completely different team than what we usually see, do you risk any rhythm, being damaged, or is that, not really much of a thing, with just the Premier League kind of already being a nothing competition for us for so long now?
I think that's what it more is, isn't it? The club and everything you can see from the lineups, even the managers basically put the league to one side. But it's been like that for a couple of months, so these players now, we've got one big important game up. We've already lost 3 of our key players. Let's not lose any more going into that, Europa League final. We're going to need all the players we've got right now that are going to be in that starting 11. We need the physicality. We need everything else. And we know Villa are quite physical, and what rhythm do we have? The only rhythm we've had is from the Europa League. There is no, it hasn't been we win in the Europa, then go and win 2 or 3 in the league on the bounce. It's not gone both ways either, where we've won, come back to the Premier League, and we've just got lost or been crucified. But then we go back to Europa and we play like a totally different team. So in my eyes, it doesn't make any difference whether they play tonight or they don't.
Mary W., good to see you. Rest all these players going to play Wednesday. I think everyone would agree with you, Mary. Good to see you. The lovely Dan Coys is in the house as well. It was lovely to meet you in person, Dan. Hopefully you're enjoying your Friday evening. Good to see you in here with us. Hello, it's Joel saying, driving home from a work trip, thinking about the Cup coming home next week. Come on, you Spurs. That's where everyone's minds are at. Hello, it's Joel. It's just a Friday night to watch Spurs, but really nothing that much deeper than that. And then Rob Ragnarsson saying if Ants plays the starters and someone gets hurt, everyone will blame him for it. I mean, Soren was saying it's like a lose-lose kind of for Ants, where he plays the whole B team, we get smacked, he'll get blamed. He plays one of the starters and then someone gets injured, right? He gets blamed. So it's not necessarily ideal, really, this game for Ange Postecoglou, and even for Spurs fans. Like, it's kind of just a weird vibe going into this game. But Dermatron, plenty of fans thought it was a good idea to give Kulusevski some minutes, including yourself and Dave, by the way, for that Crystal Palace match, in order to develop, I think, in your words and in Dave's words, his match sharpness for the final. He ended up pulling up with a season-ending injury. Will Ange look to avoid that scenario happening again with any certain player in the team tonight? Let's say a Bentancur or Richarlison, someone like that. Anybody that you're worried about that could end up having a Kulusevski scenario like he had against Crystal Palace?
Look, I I get what you're saying about Kulu, and I think if you look back in it and you're thinking maybe he shouldn't have played, but I think Sonny tonight's got to get some minutes. I think if he wants any part of the final, I would rest Benton. I agree with Paul. I would leave every player that's going to start and that from the substitutes to the 11, leave them back in London. Mm-hmm. So all the players are not going to start that final starting tonight. I look, we had to get Kulu. Kulu needed minutes. So you're sort of damned if you, Soren is right. You're in a lose-lose situation. We've got to give Sonny minutes tonight to get some minutes into his legs for final, because if you don't, then don't start him on Wednesday. Put him on the bench. Mm-hmm. I don't want another Harry Kane situation where we're going to start a half-fit player. I don't want that again. We all know Lucas Moura should have started in that final ahead of Harry Kane, but emotion got ahead of everyone. So give Sonny a good 45 minutes tonight, and I'm still of the opinion, put Sonny on the bench for Wednesday. Bring him on the second half. I wouldn't start Bentancur tonight, save him for the final. But I would start Brennan Johnson and Mateus Taylor on the wing. And I would probably give Solanke 45 minutes as well.
Really?
You're
worried you wouldn't have a similar scenario happen with them that we did with Kulusevski, with either of them, Johnson, Solanke? No?
I don't think so. I think you just give him 45 minutes. I mean, if you're going to put Odegaard on for the first half, then fine. Give them half an hour. Give Johnson or Tell half an hour, or Sonny half hour. But no, you've got to give these players minutes. You can't bring them into a final cold. Mikey Moore needs minutes tonight as well, if he's going to get any impact somewhere in the final. So you got to keep as Paul said, consistency going. I agree with him with that, because you've got to have some sort of consistency going into a final. So I think he has to be very careful in what he does tonight. The lineup tonight is going to be very interesting. But, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's a league game. It's 3 points. We need 3 points to break into the 40 barrier point.
Well, we don't need the 3 points. If anything, we don't even need this game to happen at all.
I don't want to end the season under 40 points. I want to end the season over 40 points. I want them to go out tonight and give me something back for what we had to watch on Sunday. They owe us. So that's why these last 2 games is I want to go into the summer with winning the Europa League and 2 good performances in the league, go into the summer under a little bit of a high. And if they can give us that, then I'm happy with that. But I'd rather start Solanke than Richie, because I think Richie would give United more problems up front than Solanke will in a way.
Well, I think Richarlison falls in that bracket of someone like a Kulusevski that I'd be worried about playing tonight, just because he is still coming back from injury. And I mean, Paul, a lot of people are disagreeing with me. I will be honest, though. I did say before the Crystal Palace game even happened, when we did that match preview, I said, I don't think there's any point in playing Kulusevski because he looks injured still. He looked like he was still recovering, wasn't looking totally match sharp yet for me. Didn't look like he really had, the full fitness, sort of available. And I felt like, what's the point in playing him in a bit of a nothing game then? Maybe just give him some rest, give him more time to recover, more opportunities to work with medical staff. He ends up getting injured, but a lot of people disagree with me on this one. I'm not even trying to be a hindsight merchant here, Paul. It's just something that I did end up saying, before the game. Sean saying it was the right decision, but bad luck for Kulu. Tyler saying Kulu absolutely had to start and play, and so does Sonny tonight. Where do you fall on that, Paul? Like, can we avoid a Kulusevski scenario? And what did you make of the fact that Kulusevski was played against Crystal Palace?
I think he needed the minutes, but in the same sense, he did get a crashing tackle for that one. So, we can't say, well, it wouldn't have happened or whichever, because he pulled up just before that, apparently, with his knee and his ankle from the shot.
Yeah.
So, but then he didn't have any time to recover. He literally got crashed into straight away.
No,
so
right.
I think that was a knock-on effect. It was double bubble. But for me, it was the right decision to play Kulu. He needed those minutes. Maddison's not there. He would have had to have been at his best to play against the likes of Fernandes. and those players that United have in their midfield now, he would have had to been at his best, and he would need minutes for that. He wasn't playing very well, so I just think Kulu was unfortunate. With Sonny tonight, he needs minutes in his legs, but I don't want to see him on from the start. He needs to come on for the second half. And why I say that is because at the start of the game, Villa are going to be going for it. Their tackles are going to be flying in. They're going to be doing everything they can to get a goal or 2 goals or whatever it is. We don't need to risk Sonny in that. Don't put him into that situation where you bring him on in the second half, just physically giving him minutes and the game's already won. There's less likely of him being clocked one, if that makes sense.
Especially with Matty Cash, in that Villa team, we know the history he has with giving Spurs players injuries. I think you're actually right with your recollection of what it went for Kulusevski. I saw it happen. I was actually right behind the goal. I saw him, he got that little opportunity to shoot. Then there was a block, put on in that shot, and he kind of stumbled, and it looked like, something happened there. And then he didn't have much time, like you say there, to recover in between that moment and then the crushing tackle that he had afterwards. So just to go back to on that, Paul, is that just unluckiness then? Like you can't really avoid that scenario? Or my feeling was I just didn't even want to play Kulusevski at all, maybe because of the chance of something like that happening.
Yeah, I just think it was a bit more unlucky. He needed minutes. We all said he needed minutes. And,
True.
If you didn't play him against Crystal Palace, you'd have had to have played him against Villa tonight. And Crystal Palace was, I would say, then I didn't think they'd be as rough. But obviously, these things can happen. And the way our injuries have been this season, it looks like a small knock and it turns into a 6.5-month injury. It's just crazy.
It is crazy. Good to see the legend that is DJ AK. How are you, my man? Anthony saying, pick up lads. Can't see us beating Villa. As for Kulu, it's just typical. Our luck on the injury front. Roll on to Wednesday. Come on, you Spurs. I'm clearly in the minority. I just, like I said, a day before the game, I was like, I just don't see the point in playing a guy that already looks kind of injured and still recovering from an injury and playing him in a bit of a nothing game. I just didn't see the point in it. I understand people are saying you want to develop match sharpness, develop match fitness, but that was going through my head was like, well, what if he does get a crushing challenge? What if he does end up, ending up straining some sort of injury that he already had or something like that? And I think that did end up happening. Unfortunately, it's not something that I like to be right about. It's actually the worst thing really to be right about, but I'm not trying to even play some sort of hindsight 2020 thing. I did literally say it before the game. And I'd argue that maybe certain players like Richarlison, I think we should try to avoid it with. I think he's played great since coming back from injury. I think he's looked good, but I wonder if he's someone that I would look to just wrap in cotton wool for tonight because he's also recovering from an injury still. I don't think he needs more minutes for match sharpness or match fitness or anything. And then I'd say the same for some other players, that perhaps have been coming back from injuries or are just really important players for us to get over the line against Villa, like Bentancur, for example. Even Basuma, like I know we only have so many midfielders left, but I definitely look to try to rest one of those guys as well before Wednesday, just so that we don't find ourselves in a scenario where we have to all of a sudden, again, change our team plans for Wednesday. I think there's so many players we have to think about wrapping in cotton wool for this game.
Yeah, I would agree, Jack. We have to really look after the players that need looking after. I mean, it's a hard one. I mean, I could have not played this game, like pushed it further along to after the weekend, to after the final. Like, I'm sure the Premier League should have said, right, it's a Premier League final. Let's move these games to, say, the Wednesday after the Sunday. I'm sure the Premier League could have done something like that.
I don't think you can, Damo.
I know the FA Cup's this weekend, but I'm surely under the circumstances they could have worked something out. Normally they would do.
I think it's more to do with that all the clubs play at the same time on the last day, don't they?
Yeah. I just find it ridiculous that
so
an organisation,
everyone plays
on the
Sunday the 25th of May. So there's no way they could have done that.
I get
There's
that,
absolutely no way.
I know, but so close to a final. You would have thought
playing Europa League for that.
Yeah.
They should have played it after the match day match season finished.
It's like the Champions League's on a Saturday, isn't it? Yeah, the Champions League's on a Saturday. Why couldn't they have not done that with the Europa League?
I think it's always been the case that the Europa League has been midweek games at the end of the season, and then the Champions League has always fallen on a Saturday. You know, for as long as I've been watching football, it's just how it
Yeah.
is. But it has been a strange fixture schedule for the fact that the Europa League is actually before the Conference League. I find that to be a bit of a joke. Like, why is the Conference League, happening after the Europa League final? You know, you would think that one competition like the Europa League deserves a bit more time off, than something like the Conference League, whereas we all know, in Chelsea's case, like, I think they're pretty much, about to establish themselves. I just find it ridiculous that Chelsea get more time off basically before that Conference League final than we do for this Europa League final. Rakdos Madness, good to see you in the house, sir. Yeah, Dermotron, say what we were about to say.
They did it last year that the Conference League was the first final, and then the Europa League, and then the Champions League.
Yeah.
I find it, I agree with you. I find it absolutely head scratching that we're playing ahead of the Conference League.
Yeah.
That for me is scandalous.
Sonny, though, tonight has been brought up a lot already by people in the chat and people on the panel. Son will play against Villa after returning from injury. That's what Ange Postecoglou said in his press conference. How important is Son's return for Spurs' morale and for the tactics, given the Europa League final is looming? How many minutes should he realistically play tonight? And should we even play Sonny in the final? I mean, Dermotron was saying we should avoid the Lucas Moura, Harry Kane scenario. Paul, how do you feel about that?
Same for me, really. I don't want to be playing unfit players in the final, but he needs at least 45 minutes today. If he doesn't get that, then there's no way he should be in the final. He needs that 45 minutes, just to get him up to speed. But then I think we should use Sonny as a secret weapon. Use our workhorses, use Richie and Solanke up front in the final, press them like mad, with a solid midfield of Bentancur, Basuma, doing that double pivot. Don't invert our fullbacks, make it really difficult, make them run, make them tired. Then bring Sonny on after 60 minutes. Magic Sonny straight in the top corner. Bob's your uncle, we've won the final.
It'd be nice to have him as either, a starter to begin with. And then if he just ends up, let's say, underwhelming, you do have guys like Richarlison, guys like maybe even Johnson, dare I say, who, have been playing more consistently, can come on and try something a bit different. Or Sonny is like an impact sub. He's done it before. He scored hat tricks off the bench as an impact sub.
Yeah. I'd do it the other way around.
Yeah.
Because he's been injured. At the start of the game, every player is fresh. Every single player on that pitch is fresh. So they're going to be going at it. It's going to be harder running, harder working, harder pressing. That's where you need the likes of Richie, Solanke. You need Bentancur and Basuma in the midfield. The fullbacks not inverting. Just keep them there. Keep it solid. Make it really difficult and make them run. Tire them out. And then in the second half, keep doing the same thing. Then at 60 minutes, take Richie off. Bring Sonny on, and then all of a sudden he's on fresh legs. Maybe run down that channel and he can put one in and maybe bang one in the top corner.
Is it fair
Magic Sonny comeback?
Is it fair to compare the Kane Lucas Moura scenario to, let's say, Richarlison and Sonny? Like, is Richarlison the Lucas Moura in this scenario and Sonny's the Harry Kane? Is it a fair comparison to make?
Yeah, it is. Because how many times have we done it? Kane was the club captain at the time. Sonny was the club captain. For me, he's been injured. Give him 45 minutes. Let the team go out. And then because he's been our captain for the last couple of seasons, 10 minutes, half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour to go, and we're winning comfortably. Bring him on. Bring him on to lift that trophy. Give him that opportunity. Do you know what I mean? That's what I would say. I don't think he's going to play a massive pivotal part. He hasn't all season. So, unless Magic Sonny turns up in the final, who knows? But for me, I just don't think he should be starting, not after only 45 minutes of football.
Didn't you also say, Paul, that you didn't want to start him tonight? Like you would play him in the second half or something as well?
Second half, for the same reason. Because those players are all going to be fresh. I'd rather he played against tired legs than somebody who's more likely at the start of a game, especially with Villa chasing top four, they're going to want it. He gets that ball, someone goes crashing into him, he ain't playing the final.
Tron, how do you feel about this whole Sonny scenario? I know you compared it to the Lucas Moura and Harry Kane thing, so it seems like you think it's similar. Do you agree with Paul? Like, you don't start Sonny tonight, bring him on in the second half, and then the same thing for the final. You don't start Sonny, you bring him on in the second half. Do you agree with that?
I agree with Paul 100%. I mean, even I go back further than that. I go back to the 84 final where Tony Parks was playing in place of an injured Ray Clements, and Ray Clements was back for the final but not fully fit, and Keith Bergshaw went and picked Tony Parks instead of Ray Clements. You had an injured, like at that time, an injured Ozzy Ardiles, who was chimping to start. Keith put him on the bench. You pick the players that will do the job for you that night. You pick the players that are fit, that are ready to do the job for you. You don't pick personalities. And this was the problem with the Champions League final. Pochettino was picking personalities. Or here's our club captain. He needs to start. No, you pick the players that are fit, that are available, and got you to that final. And Lucas Moura, by luck or by whatever, he got us to that Champions League final. He should have started that game. Bring Harry Kane on with half an hour gone. Liverpool's defence is tired. You win the Champions League. We've got to do it that way. We've got to learn from our mistakes. And I keep going back to 84, but that 84 side was not full of world beaters. We didn't have any Steve Perryman. We didn't have any Glenn Hoddles. It was full of workhorses. And it's the same with this team. We've got to pick the fit players to do the job, not just picking on because he's our club captain. Or he has to start. I don't want that again, because you're playing the player that's half fit, and then you're down to 10 men because the player you're picking isn't fit enough to give you 110%. So put the likes of Mikey Moore. Start him.
Yeah.
Start a young lad. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jack,
no, to
sorry.
Paul's logic, right? It's about starting off the game with the guys who have the energy, who have the match fitness to set the tone right in the right manner when it comes to pressing, energy levels, tracking back, getting stuck in. And then if you do have quality off the bench, in Sonny's case, you definitely do, you can use him against more tired legs, whereas starting him in the game might end up, not getting the most out of him, because he's not going to be able to press like Richarlison can, or Solanke, or maybe even others. But then, you almost waste some of his own energy in that first half, whereas you might as well take the most out of what could end up being in the second half, where tired legs, bring on someone with quality that could actually provide maybe more of a devastating bit of technical skill or whatever it might be that's needed to get over the line. And I mean, I don't know how much that'll be in the case tonight. Maybe the game will already be over by halftime tonight, but that definitely is definitely relevant for the final for sure. Alpesh Patel, good to see you in the house, my friend. Thank you for joining us. And also, it was a weird game at Palace. The only thing, like I said before, and I've said a million times, I was more frustrated by the Ben Davies of the world, the Archie Grays of the world, the likes of Danzo and others that I just thought really did not look good at all. And they didn't even play on Thursday night. So that's what I was kind of disappointed in. And I kind of wanted there to be a bit of a better atmosphere, but I did see it firsthand. Like, there was a decent atmosphere going into the ground, but then after 5 minutes, you're watching Crystal Palace nearly score 2 or 3 against us, and it looked like it was going to be a long afternoon. And you can see what happens. Spurs fans, they're not going to get that confident if they're seeing their team getting absolutely pile drived by a Crystal Palace team at home. It's definitely not a good feeling. And he's saying he's doing the European coach tour. Love that, Palpesh. Good to see you. And then Davey's making his way back home. So it looks like Davey will be joining us for the watch long, and safe travels back home, my friend, after a lovely communion. But we do have a couple more questions here, boys. And then we have the lineups. And then we also have to take a moment to plug NordVPN. But is there a player, if selected today, you think if he steps up tonight, guys, and produces, let's say, a good performance against Villa, that he has to start in a Europa League final? Is there anybody that you think maybe is on the fringe of the team that, could be picked tonight, and then if they play well enough, has a chance of starting? Anybody that comes to mind? Mikey Moore, Sarr.
I was going to say Mikey Moore. I'm throwing the curveball here. I think Mikey Moore. I think Mikey brings you that sort of little bit of a surprise player. Nobody, on his day, Mikey Moore is a talent. He is a talent. I haven't seen a talent like Mikey Moore since Glenn Hoddle. And we've had some good players at Tottenham, but coming through the ranks, I think Mikey Moore, I think he can be as good as Glenn Hoddle. And Glenn Hoddle was a genius was one of my Spurs heroes growing up as a kid. And I thought I would never see that sort of talent again. And I'm seeing it in Mikey Moore. There was some moves he did on Sunday, Jack, that I was watching him that I can't see any other Spurs player doing that. He did one down the wing where he just flicked it with the outside of his boot past the Palace player. And the Palace player sort of went, where is it? And there was Mikey Moore, who was gone. And I just thought, I haven't seen that since Glenn Huddle. Like, Mikey Moore.
Very complimentary, Dermo.
Yeah, I haven't. I've seen them on telly, but watching them live, you get a different perspective of these players. And I think Mikey Moore can bring something to that final. I really do.
I don't think Mikey Moore has. He could play tonight, but I don't know. No matter how well he plays, I don't think he stands any chance of playing in the final. If he hasn't been given minutes and opportunities really in a true way before this, there's no way he's going to be given that chance in the final. I think, unfortunately.
I did say it was a curveball.
Definitely was, and definitely very, very complimentary, because I didn't think he really did a whole lot actually against Palace. To be perfectly honest, that's not even a harsh thing to say. No one did anything against that Palace team. Everybody was pretty poor on the day. I wonder if there's like maybe an opportunity for someone like an Odebear, maybe a Matisse Tell to work their way back into Ange Postecoglou's mindset. I mean, there's an opportunity for them. You know, if they play well tonight, maybe they could give something for Ange to think about. I know Ange loves Brennan Johnson. You know, he has an absolute crush on the guy. But, you know, if Odebear plays well enough tonight, could give him something to think about. Then again, Odebear, I feel like in recent performances, has done his best Brennan Johnson impression, which is passing it sideways, going backwards, and doing nothing pretty much for the entire time that he's been on. Matisse Tell, he kind of huffs and puffs in recent games, but you don't really get that, I think, that clinical edge from him when he does get maybe a chance or two. So there's maybe a chance for one of them to give Ange Postecoglou something to think about. Dave has come in here and said club captain will always start. Every manager will pick their club captain. Son is going to play on Wednesday. Well, I think there is something to be said, though, about, you know, if Son only has so many minutes in him, Dave, maybe you do use him as more of the impact sub later on in the game than you would starting him, because in the beginning of the game, you do need to try to have guys that can set the tone, guys that will work hard for the team. There won't really necessarily be like a plethora of chances that will fall our way. You would think in the first 45 minutes, you know, might just be more about working hard, staying solid, making sure that no one is giving up on their man defensively or anything like that. And I wonder if Sonny's not necessarily that guy for the first 45 minutes. He kind of can get away with sometimes maybe not pressing as much as Richarlison does, or pressing as much as Solanke or others do in that forward line. You could actually go technically for Richarlison, Solanke, and Son, maybe for the final. Maybe just leave Johnson and Odebear on the bench. There's an option there for sure. But Paul, kind of same question to you. Anybody that you have in mind, let's say, that potentially is on the fringe of the team, on the fringe of Ange Postecoglou's starting 11 for Wednesday, if they play tonight and play well enough tonight, do they have a chance of starting in the final? Anybody in mind?
I don't think any of the defence has got a hope. Back line is completely solid. With what midfielders we've got available, I think that's already set in stone, with the likes of Basuma, Bentancur, and probably Sarr will start in that midfield in the final. And then for the front line, I think Tell and Odebear are the only two that might force their way in if they have a worldie tonight. But then, you know, we've seen players this season come out, have a good 2-3 months, then they just get dropped for no reason, because the guy that was injured that they were replacing has come back in straight away, and they just get dropped. And, you know, that can affect confidence and stuff like that. So I do want to see Tell come out and actually give something tonight, or Odebear, because obviously I imagine he'll rest Johnson in the sense of he'll want to play in the final, as much as I don't agree with that. But it's, I'm not a Johnson fanboy. He's kind of like what I see as a tap-in merchant and does nothing else for 89 minutes.
I disagree with that. I really disagree with that. I'm sorry.
I know you do, Dermo. You love him. And I don't know why.
Look, he's not just a tap-in merchant. Do you know, would you call Gary Lineker a tap-in merchant? Would you call them players that sit and but
that's exactly what I call Gary Lineker.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I call Gary Lineker.
Yeah, but you need play.
That's exactly what he was.
Yeah, but you need players in your team to do that. That score your goals. They get you games. They win your games. You can't just hang on. You can't just say, "Oh, Johnson's crap. Johnson only does his score goals." He's our club top goal scorer. He
I'm
has
not
scored.
saying that all he does is score goals. I'm
Yeah,
saying he's
but
attacking merchant.
so,
Gary Lineker and him seems to be specialists at, but he doesn't play number 9. He plays on the wing. When he plays, we lose a player for 89 minutes or whatever it is.
Mm.
You know, you can't have that in a team game. And if he's that good and his output is that good this season, why are we 17th in the league?
Fair point.
That is my point, because he doesn't cross, he doesn't do anything, he doesn't press, he rarely gets back to cover Porro. So when he inverts, what else does he do apart from a cross that comes in from the other side that people that can cross, like Udogie, Son, Richarlison, that can actually cross these balls? He's just literally on the end of them.
I mean, look,
anybody can do that in my eyes. In our team, anybody could do that.
You can slap Johnson off all you want. You rarely can, but he is our club top scorer. He got most consistent goals last season as well out of anybody. He's there. That's what you want. If you got wingers, if you got the way Ange plays, and he played it up in Celtic, then wingers have to get in the box. And if you get crosses in, then wingers have to be in the box. He has to get in there, and that's his job. Get goals. You're in that box, you score. Doesn't matter if you're a winger or a striker or a midfielder. Your job is to get in that box and get the ball in the back of the net. Johnson does that. I grant you, he doesn't track back. And I grant you there's games, there's stuff in the games he has to improve. And I will agree with you on that. But just to call Johnson a tapping merchant, and that's all he does. I
call Lineker that because that's all Lineker did.
Yeah, but Lineker was a world-class
Lineker got provided service.
Yeah, but
and Johnson's not our number 9.
No, I know that, but he is getting into places where our strikers are not. Where's Solanke in them? Where's Solanke getting into them 6-yard areas? Solanke's
doing
outside
what Johnson
box.
should be doing.
No, well,
Johnson should be doing.
So I've never seen Solanke playing the wing. Johnson gets in because
he's a striker.
Yeah, but he's not in there. Look,
he's not in there because he's tracking back because other players aren't tracking back or aren't working as hard. There's been times where Johnson has stood there, and how many goals have come down that left-hand side for us, where they've been playing on the right because Johnson hasn't tracked back or hasn't done this. Yeah, and he scores goals against Southampton. He scores goals against Leicester and stuff. When was his last?
Yeah, but were you celebrating? Were you celebrating when he scored them goals? Of course, we all will. We all were celebrating when he scored it.
It doesn't matter if we're celebrating. That's an irrelevant point. The point is that in the big games, what does he contribute?
The point in the big games, what does he contribute?
You can say that, but again, you can say that about half the other team in big games. Where are they? Where are they?
I can say that against the whole team, Dermo. Our team don't turn up in big games. This is the problem.
Can I just say, I've watched a lot of Ange. I'm a massive Celtic fan. I've seen how he sets his team up. I've seen how his wingers set up. That's how he sets his wingers up to get in to the box. That's their job. Maybe their job is also, we're so used to saying wingers to stay in the wing, a bit like Tony Galvin or wherever. Sit in the wing, get the crosses in. But Ange's their front tree is to get in and get in the box and get into places to score goals. Johnson does that. Johnson's not everyone's cup of tea. I understand that. I understand this. He's got to improve on his track and back. And yes, he does. I take your point on that.
And his crossing and his ability to dribble and his first touch and his passing.
He's doing the job that Ange has asked him to do, which is when you're in that box, you get into the position to be ready when the ball's in there to put the ball in the back of the net. Johnson has done that. And that is why he's our club top goal scorer. Not everyone's a Johnson fan, but I will back him to the hill. That I will defend him as much as I can. And I will admit to you, I'm not completely blindsided that he needs to improve. Yes, he does. But when he's up there and he gets into position to put the ball in the back of the net, that's what you want. That's what an Ange winger does. That's what his system does.
The Ange wingers also go to the byline and pull the ball back, which is where Johnson's is benefiting from the likes of the other players doing it down the left-hand side of the pitch, which is why he's benefiting. Whereas in an Ange system, that should be both ways. So our wingers should be able to cross, beat a man, get to the byline, drag it back, and put it to the far post. So the likes of Sonny can score. Where's his service? And that's what I'm saying. You're just seeing it as, oh, he scores because he's in the right position when the ball comes from there. That's where it should be.
Yeah,
But
Yeah,
then
well,
what happens?
I do have to,
He
before the
doesn't
lineups
do
come
that
out.
the other way, which is what he should be doing, because we're too predictable. Every
Just a
single
second, yeah.
time, most of our goals come from the left-hand side.
I completely agree, Paul.
Guaranteed.
But I do have to take a moment here before the lineups come out, because I do have to bring them up on screen for you guys to take a look at NordVPN, pinned at the top of the chat. Please, everybody, get yourself a 2-year plan, get 4 extra months free, 30-day money-back guarantee. I used my VPN while I was over in London, got to be able to catch up on my brain rot of Temptation Island, but also was able to watch my Seattle Mariners, while I was, looking for my sports satisfaction on the baseball front while in a place that probably doesn't care or even give a lick really about baseball. But it was nice to use it, nice to have it available to me. I also used it when I needed a longer highlight package for the likes of the Champions League, because I missed the Arsenal PSG game and I wanted to live back every single detail, every single moment. So I used my NordVPN, moved myself back over to the US, and was able to catch a nice 15, 20-minute highlight package of that Arsenal PSG game. Other reasons to use it: threat protection. Anytime you're on public Wi-Fi, which I was plenty of times over in the UK, it allows you to protect yourself from anybody stealing your info, bank details, passwords, that kind of thing. Then also as well, you can use it up to 10 different devices. So I was able to send it on to somebody else that actually was in need of a VPN for various reasons. So plenty of reasons to have one, plenty of reasons to look at getting yourself one. And if you are in the market for a VPN, take a look at ours. Use the code FLATCAP, 30-day money back guarantee in case you're not satisfied. There's a whole host of plans that you can go for. But if you do get that 2-year plan, you do get 4 extra months free, and you have yourself sorted for a long time. And like I said, there's a lot of reasons you need one. There's a lot of reasons you should use one. But I think we have the lineups coming out in just a second. And MB Joker Davis has come in here saying, time to smash the Villa again. Let's hope so, Eddie, but I'd be very, very surprised if that does happen tonight. It's been a strange game to cover, to be perfectly honest, man. It's a bit of a nothing burger game. It's one of the most nothing burger games we could think of. We know that Aston Villa is going to be absolutely pumped for this one. And, we'll see if we can spoil, I guess, the Champions League celebratory mood that they're probably preparing themselves for, because they are battling for those UCL spots, and it's probably an ideal team to face, with Tottenham Hotspur only days away from their Europa League final. It seems like we're one of the best teams for them to come up against. So we'll see how this one plays out, Eddie, but really do appreciate you, man. And thanks for all the support that you do show us. We also had Faz Radfar saying, correct, Johnson did pull back a few times last season, but nothing this season, all coming from the left, would become so predictable because of him. Johnson is hilarious in how much he divides opinion, but I agree with Paul. And if anything, too, when people like Dermatron make the case for him being the top goal scorer, he's still like 15th, 16th in the grand scheme of things in the Premier League. Like, it's not like he's doing that well in comparison to the rest of the Premier League. He's, of course, doing well for Spurs, but this is a 17th place Tottenham Hotspur team. Like, so it's really just as a damning indictment of everyone else. And it almost makes the case that even Johnson's numbers really aren't that impressive at the end of the day. Despite him having the best numbers, they're not actually that impressive in the grand scheme of things compared to the rest of the Premier League when you really look at it. I think I'm just going to refresh here.
They are out, Jack. They are out.
Yeah, I looked it up, and then for some reason I was surprised it wasn't there, but now it is. And we're seeing someone that we were going to have a question on, but we just didn't get to it, and someone I completely have forgotten about even existed in this Spurs team, because I, for some reason, thought maybe he had left in the winter, or we just hadn't really mentioned him at all this season. Certain Sergi Reguilon is in the team here. So here you are, everybody. Let's bring this up on screen. We have Kinski in goals once again. Jed Spence at fullback with Danzo Davies and Reguilon as your back line. Sarr, Gray, and looks like maybe Mikey Moore could be playing, you wonder, in the number 10 role, or maybe someone like an Odebear, maybe a Tell could be playing in the 10 role. I guess we'll find out, but definitely the double pivot is probably Pop Matasar and Archie Gray. And then Sonny is starting this game as the captain as well. We have a whole host of young players on the bench too, with, of course, Mikey Moore being the young player starting. Vicario, Pedro Porro, Basuma, Dante Casanova, the best name in football, is on the bench as well. Bentancur, Calamola Sessi makes the bench, which is a lovely sight to see. Brennan Johnson, Richarlison, and Solanke all make the bench as well. Guys, thoughts on the lineup? And then also Paul Markey, I think I would imagine he's coming back to the Johnson argument saying, I'll call Johnson what he is as he is, a waste of space. I would agree, Paul, but people have their different takes on Johnson. And like I said, my point is that for a team that's 17th to say that, oh, well, he's the top goal scorer, it's like, yeah, fair play to him, but it's not really that impressive when you compare it to the rest of the Premier League. Like, he literally is, I think, 15th or 16th when it comes to goal contributions in the Premier League, which is almost a reflection then of where we are in the league if he's the one that has the most goals and contributions. And it also just says a whole lot about the rest of the players. Sonny, Kulusevski, these kind of guys that maybe haven't also pulled their weight. Solanke, of course, too, haven't necessarily pulled their weight. And Johnson definitely has contributed the most. But is it really even that much at the end of the day? Not for me, Paul. Big up to you, sir. Good to see you in the house. Guys, thoughts on the bench here? I mean, the big question is who's going to be playing through the middle if he's going to keep that same shape of the sort of three-man midfield. Does anybody feel like Mikey Moore, maybe an Odebear, a Tell could be playing through the middle tonight?
I think so. I think he might put 10 in that 10 role.
Tell in the 10 role.
No, Mikey Moore, sorry.
Mikey Moore,
sorry.
Yeah.
Mikey Moore.
I think Moore's going in the 10 role. I think Tell will be the striker, Sonny on the left, Odegaard on the right.
And then thoughts on Reguilón making the team. Did anybody like me forget about him? The fact that he even exists?
I do you know what? I think Angie's using him because he has to. I don't think he has a bloody choice in it. But it's a nice way for him to say goodbye, actually. Because I know he'd be moving on probably at the end of his contract expires in the summer. But I think, do you know what? It's not a bad lineup. It's actually not a bad lineup. That I quite like that lineup. It rests all the players that need resting, and then there's a few players that could play their way into the final on Wednesday. So do you know what I mean? I like it. And I thought Kingsley was probably one of the better players Sunday, Jack. I don't know what you thought, but I thought he did okay in some. He kept us in it. And it's great that he's getting a few minutes as well. I think Spence needs to improve tonight than he did on Saturday. Danso and Davis, need to improve as well. But I'm glad Reguilón's getting a little game just to say goodbye, and I think he deserves that. The rest of it, I'm quite happy with that. And starting with Sonny, just playing for 45 minutes and then take him off. But I think that's a good lineup. That's a lineup that might get us a win.
What do you give?
Who comes on for?
Yeah, go ahead.
Who comes on for Sonny, Dermo?
I can't see who's on the bench. Sorry.
Yes. You have the likes of Vicario, Pedro Porro, Basuma, Casanova, Bentancur, Olasesi. He has some options in terms of young players to bring in off the bench, and then you have Johnson, Richarlison, and Solanke as some of the big boys.
I bring on the kids. Bring on the kids actually in second half. Give them a bit of Premier League minutes. I think. I wouldn't, and then maybe bring on Richie, get some minutes into him. But I think it's a strong bench as well, and some big players on there. But I think he's just done it right. I think he's got it right tonight.
We're going to bring in Stevie, fellow Yank here in the house, but we're about wrapping up here, Stevie. Since I have to get the watch along all sorted for Dave's return.
Sure. I have to jump off, Jack. Okay, sorry,
Sure.
I have to jump off, so I need to get my own one ready. But thanks for having me on, and great to have you. I enjoyed this conversation with Johnson, with you, Paul. Again, really will continue this to be continued.
It's nice to hear Johnson. It was nice to hear Paul go at you.
You'll never win with me with Johnson because I just believe like what Lineker was. He's a tapping merchant. But in those days, we had wingers that could cross.
I tell you what, though, I'll enjoy it. I enjoyed that. That got the juices flowing. But Jack, thanks for hanging me on, and I will see you later.
Thanks for carrying with me, Dermotron, with with everything tonight. So I do appreciate you, sir.
No problem.
Stevie, I'll bring you here on this. I mean, this is the big question. Who plays through the middle? Is it going to be Mikey Moore? Is that the obvious choice, or is he going to go 4-2-4? What's going to happen tonight? In terms of the shape.
Wow, that's a very good question. Very good question. I would probably assume that that Ange would probably lean on the side of experience. Potentially moving Sonny into the middle. As far as creative wherewithal, he's probably the most experienced when it comes to that. But that being said, it wouldn't have been the first time that I've heard Mikey Moore's name mentioned when it came to potentially moving inside and playing that creative role. And I think it makes a lot of sense as well too, because I think his vision is impeccable, and his his ability to get that ball forward is actually a little bit over the developmental curve of what you would possibly see from a 17-year-old. So that being said, I don't think you can go wrong with either. As far as that goes, I think the interesting thing is, the question that I would have is how far along is Sonny, and is he in a position where he can potentially give you 60 minutes at that position? That would be the only question that I have. But outside of that, would it be, the question I guess would be, would you be putting Mikey Moore in a position that might make him a little put himself have it a little bit over his head for being that young, for being putting him in a match where it would be maybe too much pressure? That would be the only questions that I have regarding both, but I don't think you can go wrong with either.
Yeah, I mean, he's young and he hasn't really had any opportunities that much this season, but they've all been out on the wing, and then to potentially play him through the middle could be a good chance to see something different. But against a Villa team that will be absolutely up for this, with guys like John McGinn and people like that in midfield, we'll see how it goes for him. You're definitely going to make a man out of him very, very quickly, by playing him into midfield tonight. Then there is the chance though that maybe we go with like two up front. Maybe we do go for like Tell and Son, and then maybe Mikey Moore and Odebear on the wing, and then just have a bit of a double pivot with Sarr and Gray. Definitely another chance, though, for Archie Gray, I think, to, again, get some minutes in his legs, get some confidence in his legs, because, I don't know, like, we saw him given the chance against Liverpool. Some people felt like that was harsh, wasn't the right game to just throw him in there. But then against Palace, I thought he was absolutely anonymous and pretty bad, actually, on the evening. So maybe it's another chance for Archie Gray to try to get some sort of confidence. As we sort of wrap things up here, though, everybody, would love to see us get to 100 likes if we can. We've had over 300 in the house for a while now, and then the watch along is only about 30 minutes away here. It's going to be a strange game. Baz Radfar saying, please, 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 everybody, don't get your hopes up for this game. I mean, Stevie, just since I have you here, what's your mindset? It's a weird game, man. It's a weird scenario. It's a weird setting. And what's your expectations, if any at all?
That's an awesome question. My expectation levels are a little low. That being said, I do like the fact that this is a very young side today. Kinski, Spence, Danso, Gray, Odebear, Moore, and Tell. I like the fact that that bench also has a few names that could see some action today as well too. That being said, I also look at the history versus Aston Villa, especially on the road. We're not a bad team against this side at Villa Park, so there's also that to consider as well too. But with the notion that everything is in leading to that final, I don't know. I look at this as an opportunity, especially for guys like Sarr, Odebear, Tell, to again make their last impression before a final. This is a match where you want to see these kids take a next step as well too. As far as I'm concerned, this is a job interview,
sure,
so to speak. Not just for the final, but also for their Spurs future as well too. And these are the games that you definitely want to take advantage of to keep your name, fresh in the mind of Ange Postecoglou. So I would like to see this team come out fast, be on the front foot, and take chances as well too. It's one of the things where it kind of bugs me a little bit that they take a good 15, 20 minutes to get a feel for the game instead of just taking chances right out of the gate.
Sure.
And potentially putting Aston Villa on the back foot. So that's what I would like to see. And just play loose and play fun, and just take this game for what it is. And But as far as a prediction goes, I don't know. Like I don't want to come out of my skin and say something like 3-1 because I don't necessarily think that's going to be realistic with this lineup. So I think I'm gonna go for a 1-1 draw.
3-1 for one of the teams. Maybe we can put it that way. Mark P. Yes. I kind of agree with Mark. I actually don't know what expectations I had for a lineup, but I don't mind this lineup. Actually, I really don't. Yeah. I think Paul got what he wanted. Paul wanted the whole back five to be rested. He's gotten that, and we get to see Reguilón play one very last time, potentially in a Spurs shirt. Forgot he even was playing for the club, to be perfectly honest. It was going to be a big question mark over the midfield. He's rested Basuma. He's resting Bentancur. I think that's a good thing at the end of the day. We brought that up earlier in the conversation. So Sarr and Gray get their chance, but Sarr gets some minutes in his legs before potentially, potentially playing in the final with whatever position he might be in. Odegaard, he has an opportunity to give Ange something to think about ahead of the final if he hasn't already picked his lineup already for Wednesday. And then you have maybe some minutes for Sonny, to play. So for the most part, I'm pretty satisfied with this lineup, actually, what Ange has gone for. I don't even know really what my expectations were for the lineup, but I can see a lot of the logic in the guys that he's picked tonight. I really can. So I would agree with Mark P. Kaylee Davis saying she's predicting a Mikey Moore hat trick. I think everyone who's in the 10, that's the big question mark. DB, good to see you in the house, DB. I think some people are predicting Odegaard. Some people are saying Mikey Moore. Someone brought up Sonny. I don't know about that, but that would be interesting. I think it will likely be Mikey Moore or Odegaard, I think, through the 10. You could see Odegaard potentially doing it. He knows how to shift his way around, guys. Once he picks up the ball, he gets up on the half turn, can take it past a few players. Doesn't maybe necessarily have that eye for a pass like maybe Mikey does, but you never know. And I do wonder, like, with playing Mikey through the middle, like, could he get crunched, a few times? And I guess you have to do that, though, for a young player. You have to show them, what the Premier League is like, playing as a number 10 through the midfield. It's a lot harder than it looks. Jason Bell saying goals for today, no injuries, no embarrassing performance / loss, and figure it out if anyone can play as a 10. Yeah, I'd agree with that, Jason. Any final takeaway points from yourself, Paul? And thank you, sir, for making the show possible. You've done some absolute heavy lifting for me today.
No worries. For me, I can see maybe Moore doing 45 minutes in the 10 and Odegaard doing 45 minutes in the 10, just to see who plays there better. I think he's going to experiment with the 10 today, looking at that lineup, because both of them can play on the left or the right wing, and both of them can play on the left wing. So I think you'll see like a change between the two of them. I do like the lineup. I like the way he's kept the back five. I also like the way that he's left a few at home that should be left at home, like Van der Ven and Doggy and stuff. They haven't even made the bench, so there's no chance of them getting injured for the final, which is a good thing. Yeah, all in all, good thing. And for me, my heart's saying we're going to smash them 3-1, but my head's saying we're going to lose. But I can never predict Spurs to lose, so I'm going to say Spurs 3-1.
No, I think when Stevie brought up a 3-1, then we just sort of, it's a very default prediction that plenty of people go for. I'll go 3-1 to somebody tonight. That's what I'll say, 3-1 to somebody. But thank you, Paul. I really do appreciate you, man. You've made the show possible. I think a lot of people had various things going on tonight. It's not really an ideal game for these players, this club, or even the fans really tonight, to be honest. So it's thanks for taking the time out of your Friday evening and making this show possible. And Stevie, it's wonderful to see your face before we go into this game, and maybe final talking points from you before we wrap up the show.
Yeah, and I do, and again, I do apologize for the tardiness today. It was not in the books, but I do appreciate the respect that you're showing. You're definitely a Seattle brother from another mother. I love that, man. I hope the hometown is doing well, by the way. But I was a little surprised with this back five, just considering there was a 10-day layoff between Bodo Glimt in this final, and I would thought that maybe we probably would see a Ramiro Van de Ven today just for a match fitness, even if it is for a 45, because you kind of want to keep some of that consistency. And a 10-day layoff is kind of a long layoff, and so I thought there might be a chance just in the name of consistency, but I'm also not worried about this back five. I like the continuing development of Spence and Dan, so I don't even mind Reguilón in the lineup today. But that, I really don't. The issue, the only issue I have is where the goals are going to be coming from today, and whether or not there's enough consistency with this attacking 3-4 that are going to consistently be able to take chances of getting on the ball in advantageous positions today. So outside of that, I understand exactly what Ange was going for today. The question is there going to be enough opportunity for us to be dangerous consistently throughout to make this worthwhile? And again, I think that's the reason why I kind of sat on a 1-1 draw. I would love it to see this back five just step up and just play big today. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I just want to see this team play hard for a full 90 and really make it tough on Aston Villa. That's pretty much it.
We've gone for some very technical minded players in that front line, but they're pretty lightweight, you would say. So we'll see how they handle it this evening. But we'll be there for the watch along, everybody. Dave will be there. I will be there. Hopefully you guys do enjoy it. Would love to have you there with us Friday night, Friday Spurs night. We don't get to see us play on many Friday nights, and there's only so many games left in this season in general. And of course, the big one on Wednesday, which we hope to see you guys all there with us for. But thank you guys for making the show possible. Stevie, Soren, Dermatron, Paul, and thank you guys to everyone in the chat for all the support throughout the show. And thanks to also the member milestones as well, from Dermatron gifting out a membership, Eltel Cockerell, and then Eddie and Paul Markey for the donations. Really do appreciate you guys. But we'll see you all very, very soon on the watch along. I have to throw a bone to this dog, to keep him busy before I end up, distracting myself with the Spurs game tonight. And we'll see you all very, very soon. Come on, you Spurs. Hope for a 3-1.
That's it. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.